Hello everyone, welcome back. Last class we learned about vulnerability assessment, right? There we identified some vulnerabilities. And now this video we're going to learn about system hacking. Like what is the next task? We identified vulnerability. We need to exploit, right? So for that we need to understand some basic concept first. So in this system hacking video we learned that. Okay. So if you want to perform system hacking, you need to have a tool, right? So for system hacking, we use Metasploit framework. So this tool pre-built come with your Kali Linux. No need to install it again. So using of this tool, we can perform exploitation by taking advantage of the vulnerability. Okay, in previous video, we identified vulnerability on VSFTPD, right? So by taking advantage of that vulnerability, how we are going to exploit the target, we'll learn. Okay, so using of this Metasploit framework, we perform exploitation. So in this Metasploit framework, we have separate modules there. Each module is dedicated for several tasks. So the very first one is exploit. So exploit is a tool which is used to exploit the target vulnerability. Think you identified a vulnerability in VLC player in your system. Okay, think this is your system. Okay, so in this system you installed VLC player. Okay, in this VLC player is vulnerable for some remote code execution. Sorry. So if you want to exploit that vulnerability, you need to have an exploit. Okay, so exploit is a piece of program or a piece of code which is used to take control of the system by taking advantage of the vulnerability. So if you want to exploit any target software, so you need to have an exploit. Using of that exploit only, you can exploit the target. Next, we have payload. So you have a tool, you exploit the target, but you want the connection, right? So that connection is depends on payload. Okay, which payload you choose to exploit the target, that type of connection you'll get. Based on the payload, you'll take the connection of the target system. So if you use BNC related payload, you'll get the graphical user interface of that system. If you use shell related payload, you'll get the command prompt access of that system. If you choose Meterpreter session, you'll get the Meterpreter session of that system. So based on the payload, so you'll get the connection. Okay. Next we have auxiliaries. So auxiliaries means previously we performed some port scan, we performed enumeration scan, right? So some information gathering related scans we can perform through Metasploit framework also. Using of auxiliary modules, we can perform port scanning, we can perform enumeration, and also we can perform vulnerability assessment. Okay, before exploiting the target, using of these auxiliary modules, we can check whether it is really vulnerable or not. So then, if it is vulnerable, we can go to exploitation. And next we have encoders. So what is the use of encoders? So it will encode that exploit. Think your target system, like using of MSF Venom, we can also create malwares. Okay, your malware is detecting by antivirus. That time you can choose this encoders option to encode your malware. So then the signature will be changed. It won't detect. For that purpose, we use encoders. Next, we have post. So posts are used for gaining privileged access of the system. So using of exploits, if you get the initial access, there you get only normal user access. Using of that, if you want to get admin level access or root level access, you can use post modules. Okay, next we have NOPs. So NOPs means no operations. These modules are used for exploit writing. So if you have a knowledge on programming language, if you want to write your own exploits, so using of NOPs, you can create your own exploits. Basically, NOPs used for exploit writing, like buffer overflow related exploits. If you are writing, their NOPs are useful. Next, we have evasions. So evasions are like if your system is protected by any kind of security mechanism, if you want to bypass that security mechanism, using of evasion modules, we can bypass that security controls, whether it is an antivirus or user access control. So using of these evasion techniques, we can bypass that security control, right? So these are the modules present in Metasploit framework. Using of these modules, we are going to exploit the target. And so here I want to tell you one more thing. Exploit, we have majorly two types. One is remote, second one is local. Okay, first we talk about remote exploits. In remote, we have two types. One is server side and client side. So first we talk about remote exploit. Remote exploit means, so by taking advantage of, so remote exploit means remotely we are going to exploiting the target. Okay, we don't need any kind of prior access. We don't need any kind of physical access of that system. Okay, here we are remotely exploiting the target. So how? So I'll tell you now. So we have server side exploitation, client side exploitation. Server side means, so by taking advantage of vulnerability present in system, we exploit the target. That is called server side. See, your target system running some vulnerable software like VLC or what we can say, what is the common, like WhatsApp. So WhatsApp also we have in laptop. So if current WhatsApp software version is vulnerable for remote code execution, so by taking advantage of that vulnerability, if I exploit the target, that is called server side exploit. Then what is client side exploit? So client side exploit means we create a malicious program and we deliver that malicious program into target system. So if they're executed that, so we get the reverse connection. That is called client side attack. So I hope you guys understand. So what is the difference between server side and client side? Server side, it doesn't require any user interaction. Just by taking advantage of vulnerability, we're exploiting the target. Then we'll get the reverse connection. But here in client side, it's not like that. So we deliver a malware to target system. Target should interact with that program. So target should double click on that file. Then only you will get the connection. That is called client side attack. Client means their user interaction is required. Okay. Then what is local exploit? So local exploits means, so to perform local exploitation, at least you have prior access of that system, or else you need to physical access of that system. Then only you can perform local exploit. In remote exploit, we can remotely attack the target. Doesn't require any physical access or prior access of that system. But in local exploit, if you want to perform local exploit, you need to have a prior access or physical access of that system. See, we already talked about in previous slide, we talked about post, right? So post exploitation means also called as local exploitation. Okay. So if you want to perform privilege escalation, so you need to have an initial access. That is called local exploitation. So through the local exploit, we can perform privilege escalation, persistence attack. All these attacks we can perform through local exploits only. I hope you understand about exploit, remote exploit, local exploit, and in remote server and client. So this is all about the exploitation. So in next video, we'll talk about how to perform exploitation, and by taking advantage of vulnerability we identified on Metasploitable 2, we're going to exploit the target. Okay, I'll show you on the next video. This is all for this video. Bye-bye. I'll meet you in the next video. Bye-bye.